Hey everyone, my name is Tori.
And my name is Ashley, and we are junior staff at Boys and Girls Club.
We have a guest here with us today to answer some questions about our skin. Her name is Jody Spain.
Jody, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a family nurse practitioner, and I actually work in obstetrics and gynecology, but I do a little skin stuff on the side, and I think that's probably how I have the pleasure of doing this today. So I mostly work in OBGYN, but skin is such a big system and a big organ that we all have to do a little bit of skin work. So no matter what field you are in medicine, you work a little bit with skin.
We have some questions here from some of the students at our elementary sites.
Is skin an organ?
The skin is an organ. It's a living organ and serves several functions of the human body. We'll probably talk about each of the functions as you go through your questions, but it's definitely an organ, just like our heart is an organ or our kidneys.
Why does our skin get oily or dry?
Well, it's a constant balance of trying to keep the skin from getting too dry or being too oily, and both of those things can cause problems. So sometimes we have an overabundance of oil production or not enough oil production, and sometimes that comes from disease states or maybe certain chemicals or cleansers or something, medications we're taking can cause an imbalance of those two things.
Why does skin peel?
So typically, I assume that question means like peeling from a sunburn. We're always sloughing off dead skin cells, but sometimes we have visible peeling of the skin. And again, that's usually a reaction to something. Oftentimes it's reaction to sun exposure, so if we get way too much sun exposure and have a sunburn, or certain medications can cause that, or exposure to certain chemicals. Sometimes we get a peeling whenever we have had a reaction to something we've used on the skin. So a lot of different things can peel, and it's usually a reaction to something.
How do we keep our skin healthy?
Probably the biggest thing is just caring for it and using good hygiene practices, and that means washing it every day. The recommendation would be that we wash our skin a couple of times a day. We have different types of skin throughout our body, so the facial skin is a little different than, for instance, the skin in our armpits or something. So different types of cleansers and care for each area, but the main thing is daily cleansing.
What are pimples?
Pimples are a disorder that can occur in the setting of those sweat glands or oil glands. And that's actually in the dermis of our skin and some in the subcutaneous layer of the skin. And as we get a little older, sometimes going through puberty and beyond, sometimes we get a little congestion or clogging in those glands that can cause bacteria to form, and it forms something called a pustule. And it's just a tiny little area of infection in the skin that then produces those awful little pimples we all hate. And they can sometimes hurt too.
Why do we have skin?
Skin is really mostly a protective organ. It covers our bones and our organs and keeps bacteria from entering our body. The subcutaneous layer of the skin actually provides cushion and insulation to keep us warm. So a lot of different reasons to have skin. Plus it probably looks better than walking around with a bunch of bones and organs.
How many layers do we have?
There are 3 layers in the skin. The first is called the epidermis, the second is the dermis, and the third is the subcutaneous layer. The epidermis is what we see, and it's very thin. And that's the part that regenerates and sloughs off, and we lose those dead skin cells. And then the dermis is below the epidermis, and it has a lot more things like nerve supply and blood vessels are in there. That's where those oil and sweat glands are. And then that lower level is the subcutaneous, and that's really what you would call your fat. So that's where you get a lot of that insulation, and you have more blood vessels and glands in there also.
We hear that we lose millions of dead skin in a day. Is this true?
So probably millions of dead skin cells. I don't know the exact figure on that. We could Google it. But I do know that every 28 days we go through what's called a skin cycle, where we definitely slough off dead skin cells. A lot of times in the winter you see that it's a lot more obvious because you're kind of dry, and if you rub against your skin, you can actually see those dead skin cells going up in the air. So it helps to actually do things like use a loofah sponge or exfoliate with something, and those dead skin cells will come off in the shower, and then you can moisturize on top of that. But regardless of what we do, every 28 days we're going to get some new skin cells.
Jody, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to talk to us.
And thank you all for watching. We hope that you learned something new.